back to my channel. I've This is gonna be my first episode of a series I'm gonna do for the next quite a while. I wanna go through like just the history of horror. So I'm gonna start off by doing a 50 years of horror, where I'm going to take 5 movies from my collection, starting at 1974 all the way to 2023, and talk about each movie. They're gonna be in my ranking. For this episode, I have 5 movies from 1974, and I'm going to go through them one by one, starting at my number 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for each episode, and just show you movies I think everybody should have in their collection. 50 years of horror. I'm gonna go through five an episode, representing each year, and if I get all the way to 2023 and I've done all 250 movies and I'm still feeling up to the task, I might start back at 1974 again and pull out a second 5. If I have second 5s for all of those years. That's quite a few movies, but we'll see how that goes. I'll just start out by doing 5 for each year. And these are all movies that I would think that any fan of horror should have in their collection. It's hard because I like collecting like every movie that comes out. But when it comes to horror, I'm going to focus on collecting just horror for a while and just build my horror collection, because like behind me here, I've redid my top half here and put all my horror movies on these top 4 rows, and then a couple rows underneath me down here are horror. And that's all the horror I have in my collection. That's 4K and Blu-ray. So I just want to build it. I want to start off by actually finishing this wall behind me, so that this entire wall is nothing but horror. So it kind of makes sense. All my Funko Pops are horror themed as well on this shelf. So yeah, I just want to create this as like a wall of horror. So I'm gonna start by, let's do 1974. Let's jump right into her. One thing I do have to point out is that in this series, I will be bringing back movies that I've talked about in previous episodes, because, well, quite frankly, I don't have enough. Like, I don't have every movie ever. So, but all 5 of these movies are from 1974, ranked from 5 to 1. And if I've talked about movies in a previous episode, I will let you know. So let's get straight at her here. Sorry, get a cough out before I start. So this one I did talk about in a previous episode. This is from Scream Factory, and this is a double feature here. But the one I'm talking about today is Night of the Sorcerers on this side. This is my number 5 pick from 1974. And quite honestly, I'm gonna say that this one isn't very good, but I only have about 7 or 8 movies from 1974, and I haven't seen the other ones, and I wanted to give this one a rewatch because I didn't really fully remember it last time I watched it. And so I'm adding this one in this time. Like I said, if I go through again, if I start over at the beginning again once I finish up this, I will do her all over again. But I'll give you a quick synopsis on each of these too. Like, this one says, a group of explorers arrive in Africa to study the wildlife in the same area where a brutal native ritual occurred in 1910. All is tranquil until night falls and distant drumming draws one of the female members of the group to investigate the jungle. From there, a nightmare will be awakened, a nightmare of zombie natives and scantily clad vampire women who prowl the moonlight jungle in search of fresh blood and more victims to sacrifice. So it is pretty sleazy. Night of the Sorcerers. It's who's it directed by here? Armando de Osorio. Probably butchered that name. He's the director of the Blind Dead series, so like Tombs of the Blind Dead and that. This is not on those levels. This one's below that. The movie starts out with like a African native tribe, and they're all like nude and doing their drum circle and dancing to sacrificial type music, and they drag this girl out and they strap her to a tree, and a guy pulls out a whip and starts whipping her. And I talked about this last time I talked about this, but he like every time he whips her, a piece of her clothing falls off. So it's like the first whip, and then her one boob falls on. By the time she's done, she's completely nude. And then they drag her over to a sacrificial rock, and they chop her head off. This is the opening scene to the movie. And as they're chopping her head off, a group of like local military are, maybe not local, but military we'll say, are searching for her, and they find the tribe right as she's getting her head chopped off, and they shoot all the tribe members dead. And then it cuts to the woman's face, her head they chopped off, and it looks at the camera and it's got vampire teeth. And then the movie starts. So that's the opening to it. That's what they build up. So I'm like thinking, oh man, this is going to actually be pretty solid. But it's so hard. Like, I really didn't like it because of just how cheesy everything really is. Like, there's a few funny parts, including a ridiculously stretched out sex scene on a beach where it's just so drawn out. Like, we're talking a 10-minute sex scene here. And it kind of throws you out of the movie a bit. Like, I don't mind sex scenes in movies, but this one seems just way too long. Like, I'm like thinking to myself, like, is this gonna ever end? Like, hopefully nobody, my daughters or nobody walks out and sees this. But once it gets going and the new people arrive, it starts to get a decent storyline going. Not great, but a decent one. And I find the coolest part of this movie is these vampires are chasing people through the forest at certain spots, through the jungle, and they're running in like super slow-mo. So it's just like super slow-mo, cool camera effect. And the people they're chasing are normal speed. They're running normal camera effect on them. But the vampires are catching up and gaining. It's pretty neat looking. It's kind of cool. Not very scary. It's just a scantily clad vampire film. But honestly, the reason why I'm throwing this in is because this 2-pack is reasonably priced, first off. And the Lorelei's Grasp, this one's from, what year did 77, so I'm not going to talk about this one, but this is the much, much better film. And that's why I'm suggesting to add this 2-pack to your collection, because you get the 74 film, and then you also get Lorelei's Grasp, which I actually thought was really good. It's like pretty damn good. So yeah, that's my first one for this episode at number 5. Next up at number 4, this is another Scream Factory title. Actually, this is a Scream Factory heavy episode here. This is Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter. At my number 4 for this episode. This one was a second time watch. I had watched this back when I bought this. I want to say a year and a half, 2 years ago. This is from Hammer Films. And what can I say? If you haven't seen it, the I'm having a hard time because I want to talk deep on all these movies, but I also want to avoid spoilers, so it's really tough. But this one takes place in like the countryside, feels like ancient. Well, I'll give you the synopsis first. I'll do that. In a small village in the remote English countryside, several young maidens have been found dead, their beautiful faces horribly aged almost beyond recognition. Suspecting a supernatural evil at work, the local doctor calls on army friend and famed vampire hunter Captain Kronos, an expert swordsman formerly of the King's Imperial Guard, aided by his expert assistant, Professor Grost. Kronos quickly confirms the gruesome murders are the work of a unique type of vampire, one who drains its victims not of their blood, but of their youth. After forging a lethal new sword from the old graveyard cross, the vampire hunters set out to put an end to the evil reign of terror in this Hammer Films horror classic. So that synopsis, reason why I'm going to read the synopsises is because it gives you enough of the story, if you haven't seen it, to suck you in without me spoiling things, because I find it tough, and then I'll give you my thoughts. Every time the vampire shows up in this, he's wearing like a full black like robe, armor robe type thing, and he's really creepy. Like they always have him appear, and he's pretty creepy looking. He or she, I won't say he or she just so that it doesn't spoil who the actual vampire is, but it's kind of plays out like a whodunit with some pretty solid kills, some really creepy moments where people are getting drained of their like life force, and there's some cool stuff there. I think all the acting's cool. I like the actor here that's playing Captain Kronos, Horst Jansen. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Horst Jansen is playing Kronos. I think he does a great job. It plays like in some spots when he's forging his sword and stuff. It plays off almost like a historical epic. Like he's about to go to battle in a Viking war or something. That's what it plays off as. But he's just a vampire hunter. And I honestly wish they made some sequels to this back in the 70s, because it feels like they were starting something by being like he's hunting a certain type of vampire, and he just knows like the history, right? Like he's pulling out big thick vampire books and he's reading from it. It would have been cool if they did like sequels where he's fighting all different kinds of and types of vampires. I think that would have been awesome, but obviously the movie didn't make them enough money to consider doing a lot of sequels. But yeah, I would honestly, the first one, The Night of the Sorcerers, I would probably give it about a 1 to 1.5 out of 5 for that movie, just because of how niche it actually is. Like, it wasn't for me, and it wouldn't be for a lot of people, but some people might really like it. So it's about a 1.5 out of 5 for me, Night of the Sorcerers. This one jumps up to a 3.5 out of 5. This is good fun. This is an absolute must grab, especially if you like vampire movies. Feels unique. Very well done. Recommend it. Who directed this one? This was Brian Clemens. Captain Kronos. Next up here at number 3. This is from my It's Alive trilogy from Scream Factory here. Comes with all 3 movies. And today I'm going to be talking about just the original It's Alive. Looks like that. And looks like that on the back. Now, this was a second time watch for me. I'll start out by giving you the synopsis again. It says, our modern world is full of marvels, but also polluted air, food sprayed with deadly chemicals, misused drugs, and hidden radioactive substances. Ever wonder how these poisons might affect a developing child in the womb? It's Alive offers a shocking possibility, and it, in the process, has become a creepy cult classic. It's Alive is the first film of the classic trilogy from writer-director Larry Cohen about murderous mutants, and its birth from chilling midwived by the crucial contributions of 2 Academy Award winners, makeup master Rick Baker, he's solid, and composer Bernard Herrmann, so 2 Oscar winners. And I'll start by saying, and directed by Larry Cohen as well. This one is like, it's a slow burn, build up, lot of drama, serious acting. At some spots, it almost feels like they were going for like Academy Award style of horror movie. Like it's very well done. You can tell that the makeup artist is an Academy Award winner because the blood and the gore and the creature is all extremely well done. Absolutely loved all that. And then the music and the score, or I should just say the score, is top notch. Like when there's scenes of extreme suspense and stuff, the music really nails it in that department. What else can I say without spoiling it? The actor, what's his name? The guy that plays the father here. I'm not sure what his name is. John Ryan, I want to say. Probably his name. Excellent job. He sells these scenes so well. I was absolutely shocked. He's just really good serious actor. Like he plays the emotion perfectly. But like, so him and his wife are like, they're an important couple in the community, and they go into the hospital to have a baby, and the father's standing out in the hallway waiting, and all of a sudden a doctor comes bursting out of the room and his throat's slit and he's like holding his neck, and the scene is really intense, really well done. And he runs up and he goes into the room, and everybody in the room is just mangled and ripped to shreds except for his wife. She's still on the birthing table, and the baby's gone. And what happens next is that the whole town blames them for this horrendous thing that happened, this event. So like he gets fired, his whole life's just crumbling basically, and she is just worried about where her baby is, even though it came out of the womb, murdered a whole bunch of people and took off. She's super worried about where her baby is, and which is funny and cheesy actually. And he's just not having it. Like they have another son, by the way, who comes into the picture later in the movie, has an important role to play. Basically this baby creature monster thing is just going around town murdering the fuck out of people throughout the movie until its climatic finish. And I won't give away its finish because this is a must-see, this first one. Now, I haven't watched the second or third one before. I might do those when I get to the year and add them in to this first round of my 50 years of horror. But for now, the original It's Alive at number 3. Absolutely must grab this whole trilogy. I would assume grab them all. Because I imagine, like, this first one's the prestigious film. I'm guessing the next two are probably, they just go hardcore on the gore and cheese and stuff. That's what I would assume. Next up here at number 2 for 1974. I'm guessing pretty much anybody can guess what I would be choosing. This is Black Christmas. An absolute gem here. Pretty sure if you're watching me or any other horror channel on the internet that's talking about horror movies, you've probably seen the original Black Christmas. It's a masterpiece of horror, to be honest. I won't even read the synopsis. Everybody knows what it is. Sorority house on Christmas. A guy is in the house killing the sorority girls off one by one. We'll leave it at that for the synopsis. Now, the acting is all great here. Olivia Hussey does an excellent job. John Saxon does a good job as the police chief. There's an excellent, so many good lines. Like, every time this guy phones them, he's just so obscene and disturbing on the phone. And it's very well done there. Creepy as shit. I love just the Christmas music, the Christmas theme, directed by Bob Clark, who didn't do a lot of horror, but is this his only horror movie? I'm not sure. I think this might be Bob Clark's only horror movie. But possibly, don't quote me. I can never think of these things off my head. I'm not 100% positive on that. But Margot Kidder does an awesome job in this. As just kind of a wild girl. I won't spoil that. There's a few deaths in this movie that are very well done. Like, there isn't a lot of kills in the movie, but the ones that they do are just brutal. Just, like, really uncomfortable and nasty. Feels so realistic, a lot of the kills. There's also, like, a side story in this about the main girl, Olivia Hussey, wants an abortion and her boyfriend doesn't want it. And they build some good tension there, and it actually is a major part of the storyline, which I won't reveal. It's an excellent movie. If you haven't seen Black Christmas, this is the Scream Factory Blu-ray. I'm pretty sure they've put this out on 4K now. I think. I honestly don't bother upgrading to the 4Ks when I have the Blu-rays. I know I've said this before on the channel. If I have a Blu-ray of Scream Factory movies, I'm not going to upgrade to the 4Ks. Just because, like, they already look excellent, first off, and they sound great. And then they also look like... They look closer to their original movie on Blu-ray. Like, they still got some grain... when you watch them on the 4Ks, like, don't get me wrong, I love it, because it's like watching a whole new movie, basically. But, like, here's the thing, I shouldn't say I'll never upgrade to the 4K, because I will, if it's reasonable. Like, I paid a lot, right? Anybody that collects boutique labels knows that these aren't cheap. So, double dipping to upgrade to the 4K after you've already spent an arm and a leg on the Blu-rays, that's just less of other movies I could be adding to my collection. So, that's the way I see it. But check out Black Christmas. That's my number 2 for this episode for 1974. Now, I do have to point out something. This isn't my top 5 movies of 1974. This is just the top 5 movies from 1974 of this one episode. It's like in my next episode, I'll be doing 1975. I'll be doing 5 movies that I have from that ranked. but it's not my overall 5. These are just all movies that I think everybody should add to their collection. Now, with that said, Black Christmas, as far as I know, would actually be my number 2 of 1974 overall. As far as I know, I haven't seen everything from 74, obviously, but that's my number 2 overall. And then my number 1 is obviously The Big Dog from 1974. I have 2 copies of this, actually. The first one is the Blu-ray Steelbook. That just comes with the bare bone Blu-ray, not a whole lot of special features or nothing. It's a nice steelbook though. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, obviously, the original. And then Brendan from Our Life in Horror gave me this copy on 4K here from Dark Sky. Decent slipcover, and then it has that underneath. Comes with a fuckload of special features on here, which I went through and watched on this rewatch because this is the first time I've ever seen it on 4K. And the movie had, Brendan knew this, but it had a scratch on it. So halfway through the movie it froze up, and then I restarted it and jumped back to the part and it froze on me again. So I just skipped over. I just hit skip forward and skipped over and jumped to the next scene. 4K discs are extremely touchy. Like if you even have a fingerprint on the disc, most of the time it will skip. Especially in my players that I've ever had. I don't know if everybody has that problem, but they're very touchy 4K discs. So I skipped over it, but then I've already seen this movie like 20 times in my life, 30 times. So I knew all the parts, but it looks gorgeous on 4K. I actually think I prefer seeing this movie on the Blu-ray copy. I actually think that the 4K doesn't look that much better, and it's because of how grimy and dirty this movie is anyway. So you can't take the grain out of this movie because it's part of the aesthetic to Texas Chainsaw. Not all movies, but on this one, it has to feel old and just dirty. And the 4K scrubs a bit of the grain and makes it look almost too pretty, which is, I know it's silly, weird to say, but it does look too pretty on this specific movie. So I would prefer to watch the Blu-ray, to be honest, over the 4K. But absolute must add. I don't need to do a whole lot of talking on Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like Black Christmas. Everyone's seen the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and if you haven't, obviously put it at the top of your list. But I don't know who hasn't. Tobe Hooper's masterpiece. Some of my favorite scenes is obviously when the door first slides open in the house and he bonks the guy in the head with the hammer. Oh man, that part terrified me when I was a kid. Like, I mean, absolutely scared the shit out of me. I remember, I think I had to sleep with my parents for a couple days after watching. I watched that movie really young. Freaking way too young. And that part has been seared into my mind since I was a kid. So terrifying there. When he puts the girl in the meat hook, it's just uncomfortable. Not a ton of blood in this movie. I know that's been said 1,000 times before. But it's not gory. Like, it's not a super gory movie. It's just really scary. Like, it's cool. That's why I think Tobe Hooper deserves so much credit for this movie, because he almost gives you PG horror. Like, in today's world, if this movie came out, it would probably be rated PG, because it's all about just the atmosphere and scariness of it. So, be wild actually if this movie released today to see what it was actually rated. But yeah, there's my 5 for 1974. And a couple copies of each there, but I really highly recommend adding my top 4. So I'll give the ranking one last time here because I forgot to do that for a lot of them. Night of the Sorcerers, my number 5. That one would be about a 1.5. But add this to your collection because the second movie in this pack, absolute must have. And you get this one, just consider it a bonus movie. At my number 4, Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter. That would get a 3.5 from me out of 5. It's Alive, the original. I would have to say that gets a 4 from me. I actually like it. 3.5 to 4 area. But I would say a 4. Black Christmas, to me, is a 4.5 to 5 out of 5. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a 5. Like 4.5 to 5 as well. Depending on the mood I'm in that day when I watch it. But yeah, absolute must-haves. So there we go. There's my first 5 movies for 1974. And I rewatched every single one of these as well because that's what I do on my channel. Everything I do, like my next 5 for 75, I just watched them all. I'm gonna rewatching them. I'm also re-ranking them on Letterboxd as well, and adding them into my lists for my overall yearly rankings on there as I'm doing this, which I find really fun. And I'll be bringing you 1975, probably Wednesday night, and I'm looking forward to it. This is gonna be a ton of fun for me. Just so cool to go through the history of horror. Like when I first thought of this was my process because I was sitting there when I was doing 1996 and finishing up the whole year. I was thinking to myself, what do I want to do next for fun? And I was thinking I'm going to do the 100 years of horror, starting at 1924. But I started looking at my collection, and I don't have enough movies yet from the first 50 years. I only have, especially in the really early years, like there isn't a ton. So like for the 20s, I could probably do like a top 5 for the entire 20s that I own. And then the 30s, I could probably do 5 per episode. But I'd have to buy quite a few movies really quickly. I plan on buying all these movies anyway, but I'd have to buy a lot of movies really quickly in order to do that. So I decided to just do 50 years, 74 to 2023. And it's crazy. It's crazy that Texas Chainsaw is 51 years. It's freaking not all these movies. 51 years. Well, they're 50, but they're technically 51 because we're in 2024. And I didn't want to go all the way up to 2024 just because the year ain't over yet. So I can't properly give you 5 movies. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to get you to 1975. And I'm going to get back to watching and having a good time. And you too, and you guys should too. Anybody watching. Keep on watching movies.